Hugo bit his lip as the police closed off the room with caution tape. Kira was next to him, but nobody was able to see her. The police were busy getting the body out of there. Hugo had also given them the backpack, apologizing for taking it. The school had also been notified and the principal was called from his home. It was a busy time and also devastating. Hugo wasn't allowed to get back into the school, but Kiera was also not getting in. She didn't know why, but they didn't care. They were sticking close to each other for as long as they could. Hugo Lowe? Hugo snapped out of his thoughts as the detective walked up to him. He turned around to the officer and was glad he could feel Kiera behind him. I understand that you found the body? He nodded, not trusting his voice. Do you want to come to the station to answer a couple questions? The detective was kind and offered him a soft smile. Yeah, Hugo said, following him towards the car. Kiera was floating behind him, and they both entered the car. What were you doing in the old school building? Detective Benjamin Kelly asked him. They were seated in a sitting room at the station. Hugo was glad that he was not in the interrogation room. I study there. It is quiet, and my friends can't bother me there, he answered. Kiera was still behind him and softly rubbing his back. It was really nice to have her there. How did you find the room? I was curious about the building, so I searched around. There was a padlock on the door, but it was almost rusted off. I couldn't help my curiosity. Hugo rubbed the back of his head in shame. I broke it off and went into the room. There was a different color on the ground around the bookcase, so I moved it away. That earned him a strange look, Hugo noticed. I'm in the football team in school. I train regularly. Plus, there weren't a lot of books in there to begin with. Hugo gulped, suddenly nervous. I screamed when I noticed that there was a body in there. I wanted to leave the room, but my feet didn't move. He put his head in his hands, his elbows leaning on his knees. I see, Detective Kelly said, writing down what he said. Then why did you take the backpack? The suspicion was clear in his voice, and Hugo raised his head again. I don't know. I saw the name and thought that I could maybe find the person, but... Hugo sighed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make it harder for you. But I did find the old student ledgers. Hugo grabbed his own backpack and pulled out an old book. He handed it to the detective and continued. After I called you, I found this on the ground. I grabbed it and got out of the room. I was lucky that it's the yearbook from 1985. The name is also there, with the picture. Detective Kelly flipped the book and stopped at the students. He found Kiera and confirmed the name. We will have to do a DNA check, also inform her parents, but it is most likely her. The detective sighed and rubbed his face. The only problem is we have no idea who he could have been. Hugo bit his lip. He had gotten the names from Kiera, so he knew who it was, but he could not exactly say that. We will get in contact with the old classmates. They might know something. He turned back to the teenagers. You can go now. If we have any more questions, we will contact you. They both stood up and shook hands. Detective Kelly guided him to the exit, and Hugo thanked him once more. He turned to Kiera and gave her a soft smile. Let's go home, he whispered. Kiera nodded and put her hands on his shoulders while they walked. She had his back. Hugo's parents smothered him when he returned home. The police had called them, informing that his son had found a body. Even the twins were quiet and asking if he was okay. He told them that it was fine and he just needed rest. After telling them for 100 times that he was fine, they let him go. Hugo closed the door to his room and sighed. It was already midnight and he was exhausted. Kiera was suddenly in front of him and gave him a soft peck on his lips. This made him smile and he embraced her. The first steps, he mumbled. He felt her nod. Sleep. Wait, he looked her in the eyes. Do you even sleep? Kiara giggled and shook her head. No, I don't need to. This actually made him feel bad, but before he could say more, she put her finger on his lips. It's okay, you can just sleep. Hugo sighed but let her go and started to undress. He heard a squeak and looked at Kiara to see her covering her eyes, and she started to glow pink. Hugo laughed. He couldn't help it. He had not expected her to turn pink, and he was also embarrassed for taking off his clothes. He didn't really think. He quickly put on his sweatpants and shirt. He flopped onto his bed and beckoned her to come over. Are you sure? Kiara's voice was still squeaky, but it just gave her a comforting smile, and nodded. The ghost girl made her way over and laid next to him, over the covers. Hugo sighed and closed his eyes, mumbling a good night to Kiara. She softly ruffled his hair and watched as he fell asleep. Kiara snuggled closer and rested her head on his chest. Whatever happened next, they were together.